Your phone rings at 2:47 in the morning. You already know it's not good news. Good news doesn't arrive at 2:47 in the morning. It's the federal prosecutor. Her voice is steady but tight in a way that tells you she's been awake for hours, running through the same calculations you've been running since the day you agreed to testify. She says 3 words. They know it's you. You hang up. You sit on the edge of the bed and look at the floor for a long moment. In the drawer of your nightstand, there's a burner phone, a USB drive, and a 9mm pistol the marshals gave you 2 weeks ago. You've been sleeping with all 3 of them nearby since the day you signed the cooperation agreement. You knew this day would come. Knowing it and living it are 2 entirely different things. You didn't want any of this. Let's be clear about that. You weren't brave. You weren't a hero. You were in the wrong place at the right time, which turned out to also be the most dangerous time of your life. You were an accountant. A legitimate one, or so you told yourself for years while managing the books for a construction company that turned out to be a front for one of the most powerful drug trafficking organizations in the Western Hemisphere. You processed the numbers. You moved the columns. You asked the questions you were supposed to ask and none of the ones you weren't. Then one afternoon you walked into a warehouse looking for a meeting that had been rescheduled, and you saw something you were never supposed to see. You don't need to describe it here. What matters is that you saw the man himself. The cartel boss, the one they call El Señor in news articles that are careful not to name him directly, because journalists who name him directly have a habit of disappearing. You saw his face, and he saw yours. And in that moment, before either of you said a word, you both understood that the world had changed. He smiled at you. That was the worst part. He smiled, calm and patient, the way a man smiles when he is so far above the consequences of his actions that consequences have become an abstraction. Then he told you to go home. He told you to forget what you saw. He told you that your daughter was doing well in her 3rd grade class and that she had beautiful red hair, just like her mother. He knew your daughter's name. He knew her teacher's name. He knew what she ate for lunch the Thursday before. You drove home with your hands shaking so badly you had to pull over twice. You sat in a parking lot outside a grocery store for 40 minutes trying to remember how to breathe. And somewhere between the shaking and the breathing and the slow understanding of exactly how exposed you were, you made a decision that would change everything. You called the FBI. The meeting with federal agents happened in a hotel room with the blinds drawn. 3 of them, 2 prosecutors, and a U.S. Marshal who barely spoke, but watched you with the kind of attention that made you understand this was not routine. They asked you what you knew. You told them. All of it. The double ledgers, the shell companies, the wire transfers routed through Luxembourg and the Cayman Islands, the real estate purchases across 4 states, the cash pickups you had personally witnessed but pretended not to understand, 7 years of financial documentation, thousands of transactions, a paper trail that a skilled forensic accountant, which you happen to be, could use to build an airtight case. They told you what cooperation would mean. New identity, new city, new everything. They told you your daughter would be safe, and they said it with the practiced confidence of people who have said that sentence before and needed it to be true. They told you the trial was 14 months away. They told you that until then you would live under protection, follow their protocols, and trust the process. You signed the cooperation agreement in a room that smelled like carpet cleaner and institutional coffee. You were terrified, and certain you were terrified. You signed anyway. The 14 months before trial are their own kind of slow devastation. You moved twice. The first safe house is a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city you've never visited. It's clean and functional and has locks on every window and a marshal stationed in a car on the street below. You learn to keep the blinds closed. You learn to vary the times you take out the trash. You learn that paranoia and professionalism are the same thing in your situation, and that the distinction between the 2 matters less than you thought it would. You have no phone that connects to your old life, no social media, no contact with former colleagues. Your brother calls the number you had for 18 years and gets a disconnected tone. He doesn't know where you are. Your daughter asks every morning when she can go back to her old school and see her friends. You tell her soon. Soon becomes a word that tastes like a lie even when it isn't. The marshals who rotate through your detail are professional and mostly quiet. They brief you on protocols, no patterns. Never the same route twice. Never answer the door without confirmation. Never discuss the case on any device connected to the internet. They give you emergency contact cards and tell you to memorize the numbers rather than store them. They test you on the numbers 3 days later. You get them right because you've been awake most nights anyway and have had nothing to do but study them. The prosecutor visits you every 3 weeks. She walks you through your testimony, layer by layer, the way a surgeon maps an operation before making the first cut. She's methodical and thorough, and she asks the same questions repeatedly from different angles to see if your answers stay consistent. They do, because you're telling the truth, and the truth has the advantage of being the same story every time you tell it. She tells you the defense will try to dismantle you. They will call you a liar, a manipulator, an opportunist who fabricated evidence to save himself. She tells you that's their job, and that your job is to sit in that chair and be the most credible person in the room. You rehearse your testimony until it stops feeling like memory and starts feeling like recitation, which worries you. The prosecutor tells you not to worry. She says the jury needs to understand what you know, not feel what you felt. The feelings come through on their own. Keep your voice steady. Keep your hands still. Answer only what is asked. Don't elaborate. Don't try to be persuasive. Truth doesn't need salesmanship. 3 weeks before the trial date, the threat escalates. A man photographed outside the second safe house matches a face in an intelligence database linked to the cartel's enforcement arm. The marshals move you that same night. New city, different region. Your daughter cries during the move, not loudly but steadily, the way children cry when they've given up expecting comfort. You hold her in the back of the vehicle, and you don't cry because you've decided that crying is a luxury you cannot afford right now, and you keep that decision until the moment she falls asleep against your shoulder, and then you do cry, quietly, looking out the window at the dark highway. The morning of your testimony arrives. You dress in the clothes the prosecutor selected. Neutral, professional, the visual language of a credible witness. The marshals drive you in an unmarked vehicle along a route that was finalized 40 minutes before departure. There are counter-surveillance measures you're not fully briefed on, but can partially observe. 2 vehicles sweep the route ahead of you. Another follows at a distance. The courthouse has been locked down since 5:00 a.m. You enter through a rear entrance that the public doesn't know about. You're walked through corridors that smell like the same institutional cleaner as the hotel room where you signed the cooperation agreement. It occurs to you that there's a continuity to the smell of the moments that changed your life. The courtroom is smaller than you expected. You've seen courtrooms on television your entire life, and imagine them as vast spaces with the weight of the ceiling pressing down on everyone inside. This one is ordinary. Fluorescent lights, wood-paneled walls the color of old furniture, rows of spectators who've been through magnetometers and bag checks to sit in these folding-style chairs and watch the most important afternoon of your life. He's already seated at the defense table when you enter. You don't look at him immediately. You look at the chair you're being guided toward, the microphone, the glass of water someone has placed there for you. You sit. You adjust. You breathe. Then you look. He looks older than you remember. His suit is expensive and his expression is controlled, but there are lines in his face that weren't there 2 years ago, and his eyes, when they find yours, carry something he's working very hard not to show. You recognize it because you felt it every morning for 14 months. It's fear. Not of you exactly. Of what you know. Of what you're about to say out loud in a room where federal law requires people to listen. The prosecutor stands. She asks you your name. You say it clearly, without hesitation. Your real name, not the one you've been using. The name you were born with and that you have not spoken in 14 months. It sounds strange coming out of your mouth. It sounds like someone else's name. It sounds like the name of a person who used to think his biggest problem was quarterly tax filings. She asks you what you do for work. You tell her. She asks you to describe your employment history with the construction company. You do. Calmly, specifically, with the kind of detail that only comes from years of intimate professional knowledge. Then she asks you what you saw on the afternoon of the 14th and you tell them. You tell them everything. The defense attorney is aggressive on cross-examination, the way the prosecutor warned you he would be. He calls your memory selective. He implies your testimony was fabricated under pressure. He suggests you are a criminal yourself, which is partially true and which you have never denied. He speaks to the jury more than to you, performing outrage at your existence. You answer each question directly. You do not get flustered. You do not get angry. You keep your hands still on the table in front of you the way the prosecutor taught you, flat and visible, the body language of a person with nothing to hide. The boss watches you the entire time. His expression doesn't change, but his eyes do. You know how to read a spreadsheet so well you can feel when numbers are wrong before you've finished the column. You've developed a similar instinct for faces, for the moment when the surface calculation no longer matches the underlying reality. You watch his face and you know. He knows it's over. The trial lasts 3 more weeks after your testimony. You watch the verdict on a television in the third safe house in a new city, with your daughter asleep in the next room. Guilty, on all counts. The sound the prosecutor makes on the other end of the phone when she calls you is not triumph exactly. It's something older and quieter than triumph. It's the sound of a debt that has been paid at a cost that was worth it, but was still a cost. The U.S. Marshal Service will process your new identity within 60 days. New name, new city, new everything again, but this time permanent, or as permanent as any of this can be. You will never use your real name in public again. You will never return to the city where you lived your first life. You will watch your daughter grow up in a house she didn't choose, in a neighborhood she didn't know, under a name that isn't hers yet but will become hers over time, the way all names eventually do. You are not a hero. You are a frightened person who made a single decision in a parking lot outside a grocery store and then had to keep making that decision every morning for 14 months until the morning it was over. You told the truth in a room where the truth cost something real and could have cost everything. You held your daughter on a dark highway and you didn't let go. That's enough. That has to be enough. You close the blinds. You check the locks. You sit down beside your daughter on the couch in a city whose name you're still getting used to, and you stay.